It's loud. I think it's okay, right?
It's better, but it can go down a little bit.
Okay. Is it loud out there? Yeah, I can hear myself echoing. How's that? Check. Yeah, I think that's better.
I think it was better.
Okay, it's right at 6:30. We'll go ahead and start the regular EDC meeting. And we'll call to order. We'll start with director comments. Susan?
No comments. I had to do it too.
All right, John?
No comments.
Ronnie?
Just one comment. We need to change the letterhead.
Use the microphone, Ronnie.
We need to change the letterhead to make Susan Baker treasurer.
Good.
Ronnie, I thought we had a nice drink last night.
Good call. Thanks, Ron. Anything else?
No.
Mark?
The only thing I was going to say is thanks to the mayor and everybody else for the event last night. I think it was well done and well received.
Yeah.
No comments.
Mike? Thomas?
Yeah, I can echo Mark's comments. Yeah, it was nice yesterday. Thank you. And also, it looks nice now when you come across the bridge with a tree lit. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say the same thing. The dinner last night for all the volunteers was excellent. Everyone was bragging about how great it went. Same with the tree lighting. Everyone that was involved with that. It looks really good. The only other thing I'll make a comment on, the Texas Music Office had their applications due at the end of last month for a grant for basically live music venues, and Mike and myself, Mike reached out to a few different people in the community, and I reached out to all of our qualified venues and sent them links and offered my help to try to recoup some of that money. I haven't had any feedback or a chance to talk to them yet, so hopefully they took advantage of that. And it was just the first round. If there's funds left, they're actually going to have a second round where they can apply and get funds. And you actually get beer and wine alcohol tax reimbursement is where that comes from.
Johnny, I checked with the two that applied, and they haven't heard anything. I checked with the two clients of mine that applied, and they haven't heard anything either.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to the representative on the phone, and he was urging everyone to apply, that they didn't have a lot of applicants until the very last minute. So, okay, we'll go to item number 3, city update. Brad?
Most of the items I've got are agenda items tonight, so I'll save that. But before we do, I would like to echo some of the comments that were made about our volunteers. I'm thankful that we were able to do that because, you know, I get a few comments said about the nice job I'm doing, but if I've got to be honest with everything, it's all of the volunteers in this city that make me look good, and I'm greatly appreciative of everything you do and the time you commit to the city. The only other item, we've had some discussions on the hazardous waste cleanup. I've been in discussions with Mara Waste on logistics of getting that scheduled, so we're probably looking maybe early spring to actually get that on the schedule and get that word out to you. That's all I've got for now.
Alrighty, thank you. Item number 4, unscheduled visitors. Do we have any unscheduled visitors that would like to speak? Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. Have everybody got a copy of the minutes, financials, check registry? If anybody had any questions or would like to pull an item out, discuss? It looked all pretty cut and dry from what I could see. Nothing? All right, this will be a quick meeting. We'll move on to item number 6, discussion possible action to approve funding to commission an updated parking study using standard parking ordinances, Johnny Boltinghouse. This should actually say Alex Scanlon. If y'all were at the last city council meeting, he mentioned wanting to have another parking study done that took different metrics into account. You know, we did, or the EDC did a parking study, I guess, I don't know when the first one was done, 2017 maybe, and we had it updated just a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, by Walker. And Walker essentially used metrics for for EDC purposes and planning purposes to see how much parking we may need based off of occupancy of the different establishments. And that included outdoor seating, picnic tables, time of day, type of business and time of day, and user algorithms, and that's what we used to see how much parking we had or did not have. What they did not account for is the complete flip side of that, and that's our specific parking ordinances. So that's something that Alex was mentioning at the last city council meeting that he would like to see. Basically, take an inventory of all the businesses and based off of their categories, see exactly how many parking spots that particular business is required by city ordinances. And, you know, kind of looking at it from both sides, it just kind of gives, you know, 2 points of view. So he mentioned that he wanted to have, I think not to exceed, maybe 4,500 is what he said at the city council meeting. And, I kind of looked at Cheryl's face, and we're kind of figuring out what account to take that from, and I brought the fact, and maybe Ronnie did too, that that's something the EDC should probably cover the funds for. Everything in the past has been EDC related. Since we've been involved up to now, it makes logical sense that we cover the costs. So that's what I'm proposing. I don't know if we need to change the amount or...
But how deep will they go? Will they also look at, okay, today there are 3 exits. Do we need 3 exits? Can we do with 2? Will they look at the one-way traffic as opposed to, you know, two-way traffic?
I don't think that's necessarily what...
Do we need to specify that, or is it already understood?
I think that's going to be more the engineering firm that's going to be looking at the main east parking lot is probably going to determine that.
Yeah, they're looking more at a capacity study, and we're working with the engineer to get revised plans for the east lot, and they'll do that traffic flow study as part of that.
And I think there was even talk about them maybe actually doing this parking study. Do they have someone in-house? I don't know, Alex mentioned something, but I don't know if anyone's has talked to him yet, the new engineering firm.
That's what I'm waiting for a bid to come back from, to do the parking study, the capacity study.
Oh, just the parking study, not the revised engineering plans for...
No, right now, since Cobb Finley has done probably 80% of the work on the initial, we're gonna ask them to kind of pick up, consider the changes in all of our ordinances, and then give us a revised plan based off of that. And I have also talked to them about that traffic flow study as well.
So we have no idea, fund-wise, what it's gonna take?
It'd be strictly a guess right now. So, Councilman Scanlon did authorize, or made a request up to $4,500, so I guess if you guys want to go with that, if it comes back any more, we can schedule for future discussion. If it's under that, we'll get the wheels in motion.
Do we have do you want to make a motion for discussion?
Johnny?
Yes.
So real quick, that's not really about what you guys are talking about. Alex wanted to do that based on our town center ordinances and getting them in line with our city ordinances, so we don't have 2 or 3 different ordinances we're trying to go by. So that study was only supposed to figure out how many parking spots each business needs, so we could talk about allocating that and changing our ordinances. That's why it was $4,500. That's all that was. If there's anything left, we could extend that over with that engineer, and I believe we should get our city inspector involved in that too, since he knows some of those ordinances.
I would think it would make sense to combine these things and maybe make it a bit more comprehensive than what was discussed at City Council.
You can, but it's 2 parts really. We're trying to work on getting these ordinances in line, so moving forward, we can figure out how many spaces we have, allocate those to the businesses, and not grandfather them, but make them all in compliance. Right now, they're not in compliance, they don't have enough. But we don't even know how many spots we have, and we don't know how many spots each business needs. We don't even have that information, because we haven't really paid attention to that in the past. We need to know those numbers. So when he referred to this at the council meeting, that's what it was about, the town center ordinances for parking. So that's all he's working on right now. All the other stuff with that parking lot, like Brad said, Cobb Finley's done most of that, and we'll probably stick with them on that. I don't see where it would hurt to get a price from the other guy, but involving him and what we're doing with those ordinances was not the design for that money.
Right.
That was totally different.
I think it makes sense to compartmentalize the two because of time factor too, because I think we need that information as one of the very first things, or the city needs that information as one of the very first things to start looking at the ordinances. Plus, you know, I didn't mean to hijack it from Alex, you know, getting it approved last week too, so I don't want to maybe add to that and extend it even further.
Well, and part of the challenges that we've got to get worked out is the original vision for town center had the ordinances designed around that. Well, that has evolved into really kind of a different usage, so to speak, so the ordinances need to adjust appropriately.
It seems to me like you got two different things going on, I'd say, but the study to redo the parking lot and maximize the parking space, you're gonna do that regardless of what the answer is regarding the ordinances, because...
Well, that tells us a lot about what our capacity is.
Right.
For example, on the west lot, we redesigned it to an angle parking and obtained 10 more spots. So with the revisions in the last study, did not take into consideration where the paint and body shop was. So once it came down, that gives us some more. So we increased our capacity, and how does that align with our needs?
Yeah, but what I thought you said, the deliverable what you're trying to get to is how many spaces is Schaefer supposed to have, how many does Skipper's have to have, how many does Okies have to have, how many does the brewery have to have, and you have that list, and you add all those up, and divvy up what you got for your total parking, and as long as there's more total parking than there is spaces, you're good. If you're not, then I don't know what you're gonna do at that point, but those are two separate activities, right?
No, exactly right, and what the potential is there is we could find our capacity, our available spots is far exceeding what our needs are, and we can get out of the parking lot business. You know, because that's where it's creating a lot of the headaches and challenges right now. But at the same time, we don't want to overcommit and create a bigger problem down the road.
And if ordinances are changed, you know, all that can be taken into account. That it may make it necessary to change those to better align with what we actually need.
There are, you know, Brad sent me something in Austin. They did away with a lot of their minimum parking requirements in certain areas. So we don't really want to do away with that completely, but we may need to lower that so even our own businesses are in compliance with our own ordinances, which they're not right now. So we're just trying to line everything up. And moving forward, we have a direction, and they can follow those rules and ordinances. We need to give them something that's achievable, in my opinion. So I think that's something we need to do first.
But these things are not mutually exclusive, you know, we can do, maybe we just compartmentalize it then, like you say, you know, city council does this study and we will do the other one, maximizing. And then coordinate everything through Brad, so he can use the same company.
Yeah, very well may just be the same company in two phases.
Yep.
So I guess the real question here is...
He can, but Thomas, the problem is you don't know what that's going to cost him. So if you're trying to approve what Alex brought forward, which that's what this is, then it's $4,500 for now.
Yeah,
I get you want to put it together, and that's fine, but we don't know that number, and we won't till we get a bid. So I think we should do this and start working on this part now.
And then we can build on it.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, if we can consolidate, we're going to quickly exceed that $4,500, then we're going to have to come back and authorize some more.
I make a motion to approve up to $4,500 to do a parking study to determine the parking spaces available relative to the ordinances that are in place in the city now, and study that information. And I would think we should pull that out of the other contractual services account.
We have a motion? We have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Do we need any further discussion on this? Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, it passes unanimously. Okay. Moving on, item number 7, discussion and possible action related to the public rideshare bench. Mr. Pons.
Okay, so I put this on here because we have the bench now, And what can we do to, you know, let more people know about it, you know? So come up with some ideas of what we can do to market it, if you will. You know, perhaps some signage. A couple of things I was thinking, some signage, contacting the business owners by email or in person, which I'd be happy to do, to let them know that it is there. Perhaps something like a little card they could give to customers, letting them know if they want to get an Uber or a cab. Here's where a bench is. It's in the northwest corner of the parking lot. I'm just kind of kicking around some ideas, see if anybody had anything to add.
Can we contact Lyft and Uber and whoever else and tell them this is the spot? Can they geotag it? Wouldn't that be the easiest?
Well, I couldn't tell you how to do it. If somebody knows how to do that, that'd be great.
I think that's possible, how they do it at the airports.
Yeah.
One thing before we commit to anything that I would like for you to take into consideration is we put the bench in place where it's at right now to see how it works with the traffic flow. There was different ideas where it should go. When we take to that point that we're marketing and selling it, we are locking ourselves into a place. We're sitting here talking about redesigning traffic flows and the parking lot. If we get committed to a point, it's going to be hard to step back from that. You know, I had kind of, you guys had already approved some funding for signage, and I was just going to kind of monitor, see how things went with that. We could take it to that, maybe even put a sign, because I agree, to identify it and know where it's at, we probably need to do. But it's an outstanding idea of the waypoints and stuff and having marked. It's going to make everything better. But keep in mind that once that's put out there, that's what we're pretty much locked into. So it's just something to think about, and you know, maybe the next step is we get the signs that you've already approved funding for, just so it's visible, because right now it just looks like a bench out there. But so it's just something for you guys to think about.
Well, I was thinking kind of preliminary stuff, because it could possibly move. But in the meantime, you know, at least whatever we can do to let people know it's there. And it's the only thing I could think of, and possibly something on the city Facebook page, the websites, just letting residents know it's there. If you have visitors coming, visit restaurants or whatever, just so they're aware of it. I mean, I don't know, just thought we'd just talk about it a little bit. Any other thoughts?
Like, I agree. I think we need to let the businesses particularly know that it's there, and so they can let their customers know.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important piece of it. It's definitely on our list for wayfinding signage, but of course we're waiting kind of on wayfinding signage till we kind of figure all this other things that we've talked about already tonight, and that's probably, you know, down the line. So I mean, temporary signage, but it definitely would be included in anything we would do once we get traffic flows figured out and all of those things.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to go ahead and get a pretty generic rideshare sign and, you know, put it in front of the bench, like you said, so people know that's there when they drive by. But after we do the engineering and traffic study, yeah, it can move to the end of the block. You know, we just don't know.
So we voted the money for a sign. If we know what we want to say on it, can we order one? Put it there just so people can see. Rideshare bench?
We probably want two signs so you can get two different directions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then,
that would be easy to relocate.
okay, exactly. And then I'll volunteer to go talk to the
I mean, the
business owners. That's easy.
The bench has got some nice information engraved in it. Unfortunately, it's the same color as the slab,
I
so it doesn't
know.
really stand out.
I noticed that, yeah. I wonder if there's any way to, I don't know, get some white or something.
There was some black, you know, oil-based paint so it wouldn't chip off.
Transition a little bit, or stand
Well,
out a
that
little
wasn't an option. The only option was engraving. So I was curious how visible it would be, and it's there, but you have really, you really have to look for it.
Yeah. Yeah, we can work on signage.
Okay. And I'll be happy to go talk to the businesses, just let them know, let their customers know, and that's about all I can come up with. If we want to put something on our Facebook or something, that's okay?
Yeah, we'll work with Valerie. We won't get all the details worked out on that.
Okay. So that was about it. It's a preliminary something or other to, hey, it's there. That's all I have.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we need any action from that. Okay, we'll move on to the last item, discussion and possible action to approve updated EDC articles of incorporation and bylaws. See it, okay.
Do you want to recap what it is, just briefly? I mean, I'm glad our people here today. I mean, there's a lot of noise still on social media about this and how they think this is something completely different than what it is.
Right.
Basically, we are just allowing Texas law. That's basically it. This is no conspiracy to do anything.
Yeah, just to recap, we had EDC applications a month or so ago, a couple months ago, and one of our council members told one of the local businesses that they should apply. So they applied and got another business to apply, and for a while we only had 2 applications, and they were both from business owners up front. And I started looking at it, and I was like, well, these are the only 2 applications we have, but on the website it has a tiny little blurb that says must be a resident. So we started digging into the bylaws, and sure enough, it does say resident. And then we discussed, asked Mr. Gregg here to really dig into it and just see what are our actual laws, what are the state's laws, what do other people do, what do the other 900 EDCs in the state do. So he did some research and came up with a nice proposal. You may want to take it.
Yeah, for Clear Lake Shores, you actually have to meet a specific residency requirement under the state law. And it specifically allows someone to either be a resident of the city or a resident of the county or a resident within 10 miles in a county that is adjacent to this particular city. So it's no further than 10 miles into Harris County, which would be the only county that would abut it where someone may actually live or reside. I went back and I looked at that, and I heard some of the comments from the last meeting when we were here, that even though you may want to open it up with respect to the state requirements beyond just being a city resident, that 5 of the 7 spaces would actually be reserved for city residents, and it could be completely filled with actually all 7 being city residents, but no more than 2 that are non-city residents can serve on the board at any given time, at the same time. So that's the way that I've gone back and drafted it. There's 2 different resolutions that I brought to you tonight. One of them is specifically to amend the bylaws, and Is
there a way that citizens that are concerned about this and do not wish to have anyone that's not a resident actually be part of the EDC? Because that's what we are concerned about and why we're here. If you do not live on this island and have to deal with it every day, we don't care that you're 10 miles away. We don't want you to be a part of the decision making of this island.
Well,
we're homeowners that pay and live and has established ourselves here for multiple generations. I feel it should be our choice, not just the business's choice, as to how that happens. Can you address that?
I can. There's a lot of protections that are in there. Specifically, all 7 seats get filled by city council. So you elect the council members, and the council members actually get to elect who sits on this board. If they don't want somebody on the board, they can clearly remove them. And they certainly don't even have to appoint anyone who is outside of the city limits if they don't want to. And realistically, I don't see that happening too often, but there may be 1 or 2 people.
We don't feel comfortable that the city council members have that option. We would like them to be.
Well, that's the way the state law is. So that's the way it's always going to be, because the city council always controls who makes up this board. Now, whether it goes beyond the way that the bylaws are currently written or not is a decision of not only this board but of city council. So there's a couple of documents that actually have to change if it's going to be expanded. Now, obviously, somebody that doesn't have any kind of connection to the city would not be appointed to the board. I don't think city council would even appoint someone that does that. But it's also, you know, someone who owns a business that's in the city, you would think, and generates a lot of sales tax. You may want to have, and maybe has a whole lot of knowledge about economic development, may be a good person to actually sit on the board to figure out where the monies that are actually being generated from that business are actually spent within the city. Obviously, it's got to be spent within the city anyway. So there's pros and cons to it, and I understand that. But the way that I've written it tonight is that you can't have any more than 2 that don't live within the city, that may live close by. They have to live in either Galveston County or Harris County within 10 miles of here in order to even qualify. So if they live 12 miles away, they don't qualify. They're not allowed to serve on the board. And it's a matter of where they live, right? So some of those that may have a business, we can't make the qualification to sit on this board tied to owning a business, which some initially wanted to do, because the state law says it's solely a matter of where you live. You have to live within this proximity in order to qualify to sit on the board. So, but it's...
I think the reason why it doesn't make sense to restrict our pool of applicants. All you're doing is limiting yourself. They're always going to be appointed by the city council. So, for example, if someone is very active on an open project that's going on, and maybe they want to build a new house in Clear Lake Shores, and they have to move to a condo for 6 months, you know, they don't just, you know, we'd have to immediately remove them from the board. That doesn't make any sense. Or what if there's a business owner that's been doing business, you know, 100 yards from here for 30 years and have everything tied to this community, and then someone that lives here for 2 weeks can be on the board? That doesn't make sense. I don't think that makes sense. It's not logical. What about someone that lives in Lazy Bend right here? They can't be on the board based off of this because that's county. It's unincorporated. So there's people there that have been there for decades and are very tied to this community, and we just tell them they can't be on the board. That's illogical. All this is doing is opening it up. There's no risk involved because city council always appoints EDCs in the state. So that's what we felt. We didn't want to restrict ourselves. It would be different if we had 30 or 40 applications for EDC every year, but we don't have that. It's just like some of the other boards. We don't have enough people.
I think it's also a point that this board, while we can take action, we can't do anything without city council approving it.
Right.
So if all 7 of us voted today to spend this $4,500 or $10,000 on something, it'll still have to go to city council for their approval. So city council really controls everything. We're just almost provide information. I'm familiar with the way they do it in Kemah. They have a couple of outside directors, and they are able to find people that have outside expertise in certain topics that we may not have. In other words, if we knew somebody that lived in Lazy Bend that was a parking consultant, we would, and they wanted to be on this board, we might want to get them on there, just like we have Alex Scanlon, who's an engineer on city council, and he's been a real godsend to us in a lot of the things that we're doing. He provides a lot of leadership, because when you're in a small city, you can't have a big staff of people that have expert in IT. We've got a planning guy, we got this guy, we got an economic development director, we've got all these different people. So if we find turn over a crumb and find somebody that's a landscape architect that's done a lot of planning, and we would say, hey, this guy could help us with our parks, you know, development and all this kind of stuff, let's ask him to get on this board and get some free, you know, advice and stuff. So it's a thing. And remember, there's 2 outside people, there's 7 of us. It takes 4 to pass anything, for this board to pass anything. So 2 locals would have to join with the 2 outsiders, and then it goes to city council for approval, and there's no outsiders on city council. So there's plenty of
city council are residents of Clear Lake Shores.
Right.
I think we're saying outsiders too. That's kind of not really the way to look at it. I mean, this is whoever it's going to be is going to be somebody that is entrenched in the community and has stake here, enough to apply, and then enough to get appointed by city council, who are elected officials that live here. So I think that's the way we're looking at it. Another example is when Charles Scoville was president of the EDC board, and he fairly abruptly got up and moved to Galveston Island. Well, it would have been great if he would have voluntarily, if he wanted to do so, stay on the board for the rest of his term for another 3 or 4 months, because he was pretty integral in the way that this board operated, and we would have been very grateful if he would have stayed on for the rest of his term, even though he lived in Galveston Island. That's just another example. It's just, we had never had this brought up before. Once we had business owner applicants that weren't residents, we dug in and realized, oh yeah, we have these unneeded restrictions that are limiting our pool of applicants. So this is just, opening it up just in case some of those situations occur. And again, council can just not appoint those people, and probably won't. And I can't imagine anyone that doesn't have a big stake in this community wanting to be on the board. Anyway, I think it kind of got a little, I think there was some misinformation out there, and I think that's what stirred up maybe some of the drama. But I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just wondering if the current. Here you go. You gotta have a mark.
Yeah, it's what records. Yeah.
I got it. I was just kind of curious if the way it's written currently is in contradiction to the state laws. That's what I heard.
It's not contradictory to it. It is more restrictive. So you can make it more restrictive, the bylaws and the articles of incorporation for this corporation can be more restrictive. Now, you can't be more expansive than what state law allows, but you can go up to what they do allow. So instead of everybody being from Clear Lake Shores inside the city and being a resident of the city, even if you own land in Clear Lake Shores but you live 5 miles away, you still can't serve on the board unless we change this. So, it all depends on what it is that you want in order to meet the qualifications to serve on the board. So clearly you'd have to have some nexus to it to even be considered by the council to be put on. So that's why I was recommending, you would wind up going ahead and making it consistent with state law, and then let the council decide what they want to do as to who gets appointed.
And even if you filled those 2 spots with people that didn't have an interest in the city, they would not control anything in this city. They would not control anything. They are 2 people. That's why we're limiting it to 2 people and not 4 people, because you're not giving them the majority. You're just letting them participate.
Yeah, sir, did you have something you wanted to say or no? Okay.
Yeah, and just to be clear, there's 2 different resolutions, and it's because there's 2 different documents that have to be amended that control this board. One is the Articles of Incorporation, and then the second one is to amend the bylaws. So you need to pass both resolutions, and then it still goes on to City Council. City Council has to approve both of these, either recommendations or approvals of resolutions.
Is there any limit to, say something did go haywire and all of a sudden City Council wanted to remove somebody, can they do that immediately, or is there a process?
No, absolutely. They can remove anybody with or without cause at any time. It just posted.
It's a majority vote, I think, is that it was?
Right, it's majority vote, and just the way you normally put something on an agenda, you can call a special call meeting and, they could remove the entire board if they didn't like you, or you could do individual ones, so it just depends. They control it all.
Don't get any ideas, Thomas. Don't get any ideas.
Can we remove City Council? No. Okay, here we go. I make a motion to pass a resolution and amend the bylaws of this corporation to expand the residency requirements for board positions to be consistent with state law, but limiting non-city residents to no more than 2 positions at the same time.
I'll second.
Good, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion needed? Yep, all those in favor say aye. Aye, motion passes unanimously.
See, Johnny, I could just, huh?
That was for the bylaws, right?
No, a resolution and the bylaws, the bylaws and to pass a resolution.
Do we need to make a separate?
You need two separate motions.
Two separate ones, but the first one was it for the articles or the bylaws?
You mentioned bylaws.
Bylaws in that one.
So this time do the articles of incorporation.
Okay, I make a motion that we amend the articles of incorporation to expand the residence requirements for the board positions to be consistent with state law, but limiting non-city residents to no more than 2 positions at the same time. Give me a second.
Yeah, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second that one too.
We got a second, Mike Pons. Any discussion on the articles? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and we will adjourn.